Welcome to the show. Chris Graham here. We're going to talk some Virginia basketball. I'll be heading down to Orlando, Florida tomorrow. I'm recording this on Tuesday. Getting on a plane in Richmond. Should be down there around. I'm recording this around 3:00 on Tuesday. This time tomorrow, I'll be heading to the hotel, I guess, after getting off the plane. So I'm looking forward to the warm weather. To be honest with you, it's 40. Let me look at my 37 degrees. Boy, I overestimated that. 37 degrees right now in Waynesboro, not far from Charlottesville, as I record this. It'll be 77 when I get down there tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to some warm weather. And of course, on Thursday at 12:40 p.m. Eastern time, Virginia faces Furman. And so let's talk about Virginia-Furman. Virginia, of course, coming off a 3-game run in the ACC Tournament, wins over North Carolina and Clemson, knocked both those teams out of the NCAA Tournament. I looked at the numbers. I think Carolina should have gotten a bid after all the narrative about how Carolina needed to win X, Y, and Z and didn't do so. Games, their metrics and everything else suggest they should have gotten a bid. Anyway, they didn't, and then Clemson didn't either. Clemson was a little further away to me from the line, even though I think they were first 4 out or second 4 out. I'm not sure. They were close, but. In any case, Virginia will be playing, and then Virginia then lost to Duke in the championship game. Got the better seed. That's funny. Virginia got the 4 seed in the South. Duke got the 5 seed, I guess, in the East. I've been saying I like Virginia's bracket. We'll find out. We'll get down there because we're both playing in Orlando. Virginia plays in the afternoon, and then Duke plays in the evening. So we'll find out if the bracket was better. I think it might, it's tough. You're playing good teams. Virginia's playing 13 seed Furman. Duke's playing number 12 seed Oral Roberts. Both those teams teams had to win their way in. That's an advantage I think that the mid-majors have. They have to win their way in. They're not coming off a loss. Virginia got to the championship game of the ACC tournament. So they're not, they played well and lost to a really good team. But these mid-major teams, I think that's an advantage to them. They won their last game coming in, and Furman is definitely a team like that. 27-7 record this year. I think 3 of those wins were against non-Division I teams. So 24-7, but it doesn't matter. NET of 88 for whatever that's worth, right? And Southern Conference champions. I'm familiar a little bit with the Southern Conference. For years, I did broadcast work. Primarily, almost entirely, working with VMI athletics, and VMI is a Southern Conference team, so I got to know the teams, but football, baseball, and basketball decently well over the years. And this Furman program is a team that, the coach Bob Ritchie, in 6 seasons there, he's won 20 games or more 5 times. The one time they didn't was the COVID year, and they had a good record that year, 16-9. Now, interestingly, this is their first NCAA appearance. Despite that, they've had, 2 25-game win seasons, but just didn't get into the tournament. A 23-win season, a 22-win season last year, just hadn't gotten this far yet. But they're there now, and that's a veteran team, as you've probably heard once or twice. This Furman team has got some older guys. The SoCon Player of the Year, Jalen Slauson, a 6'7" power forward who can shoot 3. Is one of those older guys. Mike Bothwell, the leading scorer on this team, he's a guard. He's a senior. They also got a mix of younger guys. Their starters also include the point guard is a sophomore, JP Pegwez. I'm getting that wrong. I'm sure. I know that I've seen that name before, and I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry. Marcus Foster, a 6'4" guard, and Garrett Hine is a 6'9" center, and he can shoot. They can all shoot. This is a team that shoots a lot of threes. They're in the top 20 in makes and top 10 in attempts. They're only shooting 34.7%. Last year, they were 38%, which was right there in the top 10 or 12 in the nation. They're a little further down this year, but they still shoot them. They still shoot a lot of threes. They'll put pressure on you. 0-2 record in quad 1 games this season. The losses were to 2 NCAA at-large teams. And one of those was relatively close, actually pretty close, at Penn State, 73-68 back on November 17th, also lost to NC State in December 13th by 19 points. Their best win was UNC Greensboro, one of their conference foes. They split this year with Greensboro. So they and actually won at Greensboro, lost at home to Greensboro. So I talked about the advantage of these mid-major teams. They had to win their way in. The disadvantage is, they play their tougher games against tougher foes, if you want to say. I do. they play those games in November and December, and then they play conference foes. They play a lot of lower ranked teams. That's just the nature of small conference play. They play those in January, February. So they're coming off, those kind of teams come off of, playing maybe not the opposition that they played way back when, but and that's why this Furman team has 2 quad 4 losses. They just play a lot of quad 4 games because of their conference matchups. And actually, one of them was a non-conference game, High Point, whose NET is 290. Furman lost to them back in December, and then the Citadel in February, mid-February, February 15th. And so that is what it is. Furman is a team that likes to play with pace. Their tempo is above average for the NCAA this year, 68.5 possessions per game. Virginia averages 61.6. This game will be played closer to 61.6 if it's not even lower than that. Given that it's a tournament game and tournament games play a little differently. Now, KenPom tells us that Furman is a top 10 team nationally in terms of adjusted offensive efficiency. They average 1.142 points per possession, and that's 33rd nationally. And there's 363 teams, so that's actually top. That's 1 out of 11. That's top 9% nationally, so it doesn't matter. Defensively, they're below average. They allow 1.058 points per possession. So a team that scores a lot, team that can give up a lot, they play a faster pace. They like to play a faster pace. They like to bomb threes. That could play into Virginia's hands, I think. From a rotation standpoint, I mentioned some of the guys. Bothwell, the senior 2 guard, averages 18 points a game, which leads the team. He shoots 33.8% from 3, 51.9% overall. So obviously that means he gets in the lane a lot. And can finish at the rim. Jalen Slauson, I mentioned the SoCon Player of the Year, 15.7 points, 7.1 rebounds, shoots 55.6% from the field, 39.4% from 3. He's the real deal. He'll be a matchup problem for Jaden Gardner. I assume Jaden Gardner will get him. The numbers kind of tell you a little bit like he's a Filipowski. He's just several inches shorter. But certainly a player who can put it in the hole. Pegwa has 12.0 points, 4 assists, 42% from the field, 34.9% from 3. And Marcus Foster, the other guy in double figures for this team on average, 10.6 points, 5.2 rebounds, 42.6% 3, or 42.6% from the field, 36.4. I'll get it right eventually. 36.4% from 3. And Garrett Hine, the center, 6'9" junior center, 8 points, 4 rebounds, and shoots 54% from the field and 36.6% from 3. They can all shoot the 3. This is up and down a roster can shoot the 3. This is a game we probably wish we had Ben Vanderplas, to be honest with you, just to counter. They play small. I put that in quotations because I don't, 6'9" is not small, but they play small and they play it well. And they play an 8-man rotation. They got some guys off the bench who can shoot the 3. Alice Williams can shoot 35.4%. He's a 6.2 point per game scorer. Tyrese Huey, 5 points a game, 34.7%. And so that's this is a team that, from the number standpoint, certainly can be formidable. I think that's something to pay attention to. This team can, but I think Furman can and might struggle just again because of the tempo issues. They like to play a faster pace, and I just, it's highly doubtful they'll be able to get Virginia to play fast. Now, it's interesting talking with listening to, I should say, as if I talk to Tony Bennett. I don't talk to Tony Bennett. He has some limited appearances with the media and had a couple this week. He talked about how the quick turnaround when you have a game like this thrown on your schedule on a Sunday and you play on Thursday, and I didn't write this in the story I wrote about this today, but for the most part, I mean, you play 20 ACC games, going into a season, you're playing 20 ACC games. Now, there'll be some changes this year because there's new coaches coming in the league. Damon Stoudemire, hired at Georgia Tech, for example, is one. We know there'll be a new coach at Notre Dame. We know there'll be a new coach. There's a new coach at Syracuse, Adrian Autry. We don't know if he's going to change things up from Jim Boeheim's, system for all the years. But you tend to know personnel. I know in the transfer portal era and the Duke one and done era that there can be some differences there. But by and large, you know enough about the team. You got a framework to work within that you can spend your whole offseason saying, okay, let's work this week on Wake Forest. Let's work this week on NC State or whatever, around whatever else you're doing recruiting wise and that kind of thing. And then your schedule. You're going to play NC Central. You're going to play whoever, Monmouth, whatever. So you can kind of you study those teams as much as possible. Have one of the assistants write up some reports, get a little, get ready for them. This game, you have all season to do that work. This is 4 days, and Tony noted that, of course, Virginia played 3 late nights last week. That's why I have all these bags under my eyes, because I was up late with them too, even later. 3 late nights last week in Greensboro with the run in the ACC tournament. They actually decided just to come back on Sunday morning instead of coming back Saturday night, because he said it was because of the time change. They didn't want to, be getting back even later. And so, some bleary eyes in the Virginia basketball program too. But then you gotta get ready. And so the video editors, Johnny Carpenter's the guy who's the director of player personnel, but he's also the video coordinator for UVA athletics. Tony said he was even pitching in and doing some video work this week. You find highlights, you try to chop them up, you try to show your guys what to expect on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, from the team you're getting ready to play that you have a couple of days to prepare for. Prepare scouting reports. I've seen the scouting reports that are prepared, for games like this, and they're very detailed, and you have a little bit of time to prepare them. So what Tony has seen is, he has a lot of respect for this Furman program. He mentioned that Bob Ritchie coached under someone who knew his father, Dick, and he mentioned that in the context of course, Tony played at a small college too, a mid-major. He played at Wisconsin Green Bay back when he was in college, and got out of there to play a few years in the NBA. But he knows. I mean, I don't know if a coach who played a Power 5 can have the same level of appreciation that a Tony Bennett can have for just what it takes for that kind of a team to get into the tournament in the first place, and then what they're looking forward to, what they look forward to pull an upset, because Tony was there. He tried to pull an upset. I think they only made the tournament 1 year in his run, because in those conferences you have to win your conference tournament, and they won 1 year. But it's he knows that mentality, and so he talked about all the video work that's been done, all the work on scouting that's been done. His respect for Bob Ritchie and his program. Again, 20 plus win seasons in six years. A lot of respect for Jalen Slauson. Those numbers, if he was a little greedier, he could be a even more threatening guy. And maybe we'll see in this tournament, maybe he does try to take over a little bit more, as far as that goes. And so a lot of respect for this team. And I think for the fan base out there, it's a 4-13 matchup, a little different than the one a couple of years ago. Virginia was in a 4-13 matchup in 2021 against Ohio. Ben Vanderplas had a good game in that game against Virginia. But we remember the weird circumstances of that one. Virginia's basketball team was put on a COVID quarantine after one game in the ACC tournament, a win over Syracuse, a last-second win, and didn't get to compete anymore in that ACC tournament. And then was actually, if my memory serves right, and I've looked this up too, the quarantine extended pretty much until they were able to travel to the game site on the Saturday. And they basically had a walkthrough and played the game, played well. I mean, lost in the end 62-58. But that, so we know that a 13, that Ohio was the champ of the MAC that year. We know what kind of play those teams can give you. Tony mentioned that the fact that Ben Vanderplas started for this Virginia team this year as much as he did, and was such a key player until breaking his hand, and he's now out for the season. That coming from a mid-major, there's a lot of guys on these teams that can and a lot of times do end up transferring to a Power 5 and playing just as well there as they did at the mid-major level. So there's a lot of respect for Tony Bennett for these teams and for this Furman team. Ken Pom has Virginia favored by 5 in this game. I've looked around at some other matchups. In fact, I'll do that right now. I've got Ken Pom up just to give you some comparison, because if you're a Virginia fan, say, man, we're only favored by 5 by Ken Pom. That says something. Let's pull up. Okay, Duke, for example, is playing Oral Roberts in our regional down in Orlando, 75-72, so a 3-point favorite there. Let's find another. It's just Kansas State. I'm just going to randomly pick Kansas State. They're playing Montana State, favored by 9. That's a 3-14 matchup. That's the advantage of being a 3, right? Let's see. Xavier's a 3. Xavier, Kennesaw State, a 12-point margin there. It's when you get down. Let's find another 5 or a 6. Kentucky's a 6. Let's see what they're playing in. Providence, and it's a 2-point game. So, you see the numbers and you say, yeah, look at that. 4-13, 5-12, 6-11. I mean, those should be matchups that, maybe 20 years ago everybody would have been, all those teams would have been favored by 10 or more points. But college basketball, the talent is a lot more evenly dispersed these days. Tony Bennett mentioned that as well. So be prepared, Virginia fans. It's a 12:40 tip, and on Thursday, and not that it matters, but I'll be there. Let's see. I'll be reporting from there tomorrow. In fact, I'll probably do a podcast from there tomorrow. And I'm trying to line up something with Jerry Ratcliffe as well. Jerry is not going to be making the trip down there. He's hoping to make it if Virginia makes it through the first 2 games. He and Scott German will be joining me in Louisville next weekend for the Sweet 16 Elite 8 round. Virginia, if they got that far, now there's the 5-12 matchup in Virginia's region. If Virginia wins on Thursday, and to answer a question I've answered a few times, no, we don't know what time. The game would be on Saturday. If if Virginia wins, there's a game on Saturday. CBS makes those decisions later in the day on Thursday, and then on Friday, based on just TV ratings potential. So I would assume if Virginia wins and then Duke wins at night, that whatever order, whatever time of the day we play, afternoon or evening, we would go before Duke. Duke's going to play later than us. I think that's a pretty fair assumption that CBS will try to put Duke in a more prime time type slot. So we might be a night game, but we'd be the earlier of the night games. What was I getting ready to look at here? I had an idea what I was going to look at here, and I have now forgotten. So it's a 12:40 tip. Oh, I was going to look at the 5-12 matchup in our bracket real quick. I had done some looking further down the bracket, and I think it's worth sharing. Not to look ahead too much, but certainly, might as well. I'm not jinxing anything here. The rest of the bracket, the 5-12 game is San Diego State, 27-6. Their net is 14. College of Charleston. I remember College of Charleston. They were the CAA champs this year, 31-3, a net of 51. Played Carolina tough earlier in the year. It was one game I remember. They were ranked a couple different times this year, I think, in the top 25. So that would be the winner of that game would play the winner of Virginia-Furman on Saturday. We don't know what time. You would expect that obviously the winner of that game would be expected to play Alabama. Alabama could have a tough matchup in round 2. I think it will be a tough matchup. Maryland, West Virginia is the 8-9 game opposite Alabama. And I tell you what, those two teams have records befitting 8 and 9 seeds, but they also have resumes that make you scared if you're a 1 seed. I think both those teams have played tough basketball. Maryland in the Big 10, West Virginia in the Big 12. They're battle tested, so whoever emerges from that rock fight can certainly give Alabama a game. And honestly, if Virginia gets that far and Alabama gets that far, it'd be a clash of styles kind of game. Alabama loves to run; they shoot a lot of threes. And Virginia is Virginia. So that could be one where Virginia could be the underdog upset type team. And then on the bottom part of the bracket in the South, Arizona is the number 2 seed. The 3 seed is Baylor. We remember Baylor. Virginia beat Baylor back in Las Vegas in November, a long time ago, it feels like now. And NC State's also seeded in the bottom part of the South bracket. They're the 11 seed. They play Creighton in the first round. So mentioning way back when, we're thinking back to the Baylor game. That was the week of that horrible tragedy, obviously, that will reverberate for many years for Virginia athletics fans, for Virginia alums. The November 13th tragic shootings that took the lives of 3 football players, and also 2 others were injured, and 2 other people were injured, including Mike Hollins, a football player. And I want to close the podcast with some good news today. Hollins was, if you remember what you were hearing the morning that we were getting the news that Lavelle Davis Jr., Deshaun Perry, and Devin Chandler had been shot and killed on the return from a field trip with the drama department on Sunday, November 13th. We heard the next day what had happened, and we were hearing names. And Mike Hollins, the running back, who was on the trip as well, At first, there were reports that he had also died. It turns out, very fortunately, he was only in serious condition. He was in a ICU. He was on a ventilator. He's at practice today. 4 months and a day after the shooting, he is a full participant in the first spring practice at UVA football today. And there's not a better underdog story to tell than that one. So just the fact that he's out there, and the fact that he can walk, the fact that he's alive, he's already got his degree from UVA, now working on a master's, and he's an inspiration. So it's going to be a tough season for Virginia football. I mean, on the emotional side, from the loss of those three players, which will never be forgotten. But also, it's going to be tough because the program is in shambles on the football side of things. But boy, I hope we get to see Mike Holland in the end zone at least once this year. That'll be a great story. So check us out. I'll be heading down to be in Orlando this time tomorrow. Hope to, we'll be writing from there. We'll be podcasting from there Thursday during the day. Maybe I'll revive the live blog. I haven't done a live blog in a while. They don't tend to get a lot of reads, but I'm getting the sense, keep getting emails and texts from people. I'm not getting the sense there's going to be too many Virginia media down there. So maybe I need to kind of share some things just because there won't be so many folks down there. I think a lot of folks are trying to, it's a tough time in the media business right now. Budgets are tight for a lot of folks. Fortunately for us, that we're doing well. But a lot of folks are having to make decisions about, whether they can even go to the ACC tournament. There were some people missing from the Virginia media last week. I've heard from a couple different people who are saying they're going to just hold out and look forward to Virginia getting to Louisville next weekend. And if that happens, they'll be there. So that's reality in the media business. And anyway, I'll be there. So yeah, we'll try to give you some flavor from Orlando. I promise to get a sunburn for everyone. That's my promise to you, that I'll get a sunburn. In any case, thank you for listening. Go to AugustaFreePress.com for the latest, for lots of detailed stories and more. Thanks for listening, and have a great day, everybody.